What is going on, guys? Welcome to a new episode of Subhuman Rants. I know it's been a while since we posted a video out, but got a lot of new content coming, so let's start it all off with something pretty big. Trey couldn't be here today. He actually recently found the music of Sarah McLachlan, so he's been very busy lately. But today we're going to talk about the MCU versus the DCEU, and pretty much the problems that's going on, why it's not really competitive, so on and so forth. So to start, for people that have been living under a rock lately, or for the last like over 10 years now, the MCU is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's pretty much what brought us all of the Avengers and all of the movies tied in with that. The DCEU is more recent. I believe the first movie that came out was 2013, and that is all of the DC characters. So to pretty much start off with what this video is going to be about, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is massive. It's basically blown up to high proportions I don't believe anyone really thought it would. And it's basically become a pretty big cultural phenomenon. And their movies are pretty much selling through the roof, yada yada. There's a lot about that. I'm not going to go into detail about all of that, but the DCEU surprisingly hasn't been able to compete with the MCU. The reason for this, I believe, falls in pretty much two. There's two reasons, and the first one being planning. So if you are a Marvel fan, you're going to know that Marvel movies pretty much get released in phases. So a bunch of movies will be all grouped together in one phase, and that'll be phase one, phase two, whatever. Marvel plans all of their movies out this way. So the cameos that you see with, you know, certain characters popping up at the end of movies or in post-credit scenes and all that stuff, that's planned in advance before these movies are pretty much close to final production. That's one of the biggest reasons why DC can't really compete with Marvel is that they haven't been planning this out. And I'll touch more on that in a minute. But the second reason I believe is their contracts with their actors. And it kind of falls in the same category. So Marvel signs their actors on for multiple movies just to get through at least a phase. They will have all of these actors under contract so that if they want to use that actor while they're planning out these movies, the actor's available. They don't really have to work around other movie schedules, so on and so forth. So that's DC's biggest issue in my mind. Because when you look at it, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there has been some movies that have come out that aren't part of the MCU, that came out before the MCU started. But since the MCU, there hasn't been any Marvel movies, with the exception of maybe Into the Spideyverse, which that one is owned by the rights for that are owned by Sony. But there hasn't been really any Iron Man, Captain America, anything like that that's not part of the MCU. There hasn't been a live action movie or anything like that to pull away from the MCU. Now, when we look at DC, the reason for DC for their issues with this is they have just recently started actually focusing on creating a cinematic universe. So when you look at, for instance, Batman right here, we have had quite a few Batmans now before the DCEU even started. But the biggest issue concerning this problem is that since the DCEU started, we haven't been sure who's going to play Batman. Originally signed on was Ben Affleck. In my mind, he's a good actor. I've always appreciated movies that he's been in. But we haven't been sure because when he started out, he did the first few movies in the DCEU. And then there was a movie plan that he was going to direct, and he was also going to star in it. And then he was no longer going to direct it or no longer going to star in it. all these rumors came out, and then it was talking about how he was going to be leaving the DCEU and no longer playing Batman. Um, that's something you really can't have. You have to plan these actors' entrance and exit into the universe pretty well. Anyways, the only issue that we've had has been, for instance, the role of Iron Man's best friend, and who'd also go on to become an Avenger. It was originally meant to be Terrence Howard, and then they've moved on to Don Shield. Of course, this hasn't really been that big of an issue because it's not a star. It's not like the main character. But if you think in your head, who do you think of when you think of Iron Man? You're going to think of Robert Downey Jr. When you think of Batman, younger people are probably going to think of either Ben Affleck or Christian Bale. Those are probably the two Batman that they're going to think of. As you get older and stuff, you're probably going to think of possibly. I grew up, the first Batman movie I saw was George Clooney. I know a lot of people really don't like that movie. I have a special place in my heart for it. But there's also Val Kilmer. Then there's also Michael Keaton. There's other actors that have portrayed this role. So when you think of Batman, there's not a definitive character. And that's the problem with the DCEU, is that since they've started this, they haven't been able to hold it together. So now we have reports of another Batman movie that's going to be coming out that's going to have Robert Pattinson playing the role of Batman. We had the Joker movie that just came out, I believe 2019 is when it came out. That was a different Joker than we had in the Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad is part of the DCEU, and that Joker movie is technically not. So why make movies if they're not going to tie into your universe? So I believe the problem here is that they're not as invested as they need to be. And that's something that DC really needs to work on. Now, if you've been keeping up with the rumors and the information that we're getting on the DCEU, you're going to see that they're not sure what's going on. And I've heard a lot of stuff lately saying that they're not even going to be going forward with these big Justice League movies and the Avenger style movies and stuff, that they're pretty much going to stick to, just the small individual characters. Now, that might work for them, honestly, but I prefer the bigger universe. I prefer to think like, okay, so when are they going to introduce this character and that character, and having them all meet together? So that's definitely something that I'll be sad if that does kind of never happen. But I believe that we definitely need to stick with these big team up movies and these big universes. It's definitely working for Marvel. Unfortunately, it's not working for DC right now, but I believe if they pretty much plan everything better and they maybe have someone in charge of the universe, someone like Kevin Feige that's in control of the Marvel universe, they're going to have better success with that. So yeah, that's really why the DCEU is not competing with the MCU. How they could fix it, like I said, I believe that they really need to have better planning. They need to have these actors on lock. With Superman, I believe it was the Batman versus Superman movie. He had a mustache for another role. You have to have pretty much control. I wouldn't really say control, but you have to have some sort of thing planned, to where these actors, when you need them for these movies, they're not going to be playing some other character for a different company, to where they might have to have different facial hair, different hair length, so that you have to worry about CGIing it and messing everything up. It falls badly on your production. The final product that is the DC movies has just been lacking because of this. I mean, Marvel, they have very specific standards for these actors. A lot of them have to be in the gym and eating healthy and stuff. I mean, maybe I need to take on that, but no, these actors are under contract. They need to have these certain requirements to play these characters, and they can't go off and just play in other roles that might interfere with their filming schedule with these movies. So hopefully DC can get it together. I don't see that happening. They're talking about already leaving the DCU behind. They're making movies like Joker and Batman that aren't going to be tied into the DCEU. And that's their problems. I mean, you can't have all this stuff going on. I mean, excuse me. Marvel did have these TV shows going on, but those were under contract, I believe, with Netflix or maybe a different company. I haven't caught up on all of those shows, but shows like The Punisher, Jessica Jones, those shows, they don't really fall into the MCU. However, now that Marvel has the rights to those, they could bring them back and they could bring them into their universe. The same thing with the X-Men. Now, the X-Men are supposed to be coming into the universe. You're not seeing Marvel basically making these movies that don't tie in with their universes, and that's why they're having success. But I believe that this video is probably as long as it's going to get. If you definitely have any suggestions or any comments on this topic, definitely leave a comment down below. If you like this video, definitely give us a like. And if you haven't already, definitely subscribe. Like I said, I've got a lot of videos coming out, a lot of stuff I'm working on. So yeah, definitely subscribe and hit that bell button so you see a video when it comes up. So thanks for watching, guys. Have a good day.